I'll give you 12.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Okay, well, thanks again for the encore. We'll try to make the most of it here.
Okay.
Now, I want to jump right in. The book sold out. The first edition sold out fast. I mean, what do you think about that? That was really cool.
I was overwhelmed. I did not expect that. And I used to make a joke before it was out. I said, or when I was writing, I said, I don't know if the world needs another aging rock star's biography. Stephen, there was a great line from David Byrd, Talking Heads, and he said, another any more rock autobiographies makes for a crowded bookshelf. Something like it was very, very good. I can't remember, that's not exactly how he said it, but it was very funny. But I used to make a joke about it. But no, I was overwhelmed. I didn't expect that to happen. And it's still going really well. So,
well, congratulations on that.
Thank
for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Now, you've said numerous times in interviews with me and also in the book that Sweetheart was not your favorite Byrds album, but you don't say what was. So what was and why?
Okay, I love the first one because some of the songs just really grabbed me, and some of Gene's songs. I love the first album. Okay, that was Mr. Tambourine Man. I liked all of them. I know that's a terrible answer for your question. I probably really leaned toward Younger Than Yesterday's because that's when I started to come out of my shell, so to speak. But I thought the album in itself, the stuff, not just me, but I mean, what David was writing, Renaissance Fair, and Everybody's Been Burned and things like that. I thought we were really going in an interesting direction. So Younger Than Yesterday might be my favorite. I think it is. I will say that's my favorite album. And not because I'm writing songs, but because of the stuff David and Roger were writing. It was really cohesive.
Well, that's my favorite album also, and for the same reasons and a lot more. You guys were just... It all came together nicely there, and it was definitely your coming out party, if you will.
It was. That was a great year. I love that year, 67. And I remember I said the other day to you, I said, we went from covering Bob Dylan in a matter of a year, and then we were playing songs like 8 Miles High, and we turned into a really good band. We were a little, clumsily started out because we were, as we say, we came out of folk music, but it wasn't a big stretch to plug in. In that sense, I mean, we stayed within that premise. And the other thing about Sweetheart of the Rodeo, I always try to make a point that we weren't necessarily crossing over, and we were, let's become a country act. You know what I'm saying? So we were the Byrds doing a country album, and we were going to remain the Byrds beyond that. So it was just a side journey there.
Well, it's definitely the West Coast, Nashville identity.
Connection. Yeah.
It's a whole different kind of identity to the West Coast sound.
I have much more appreciation for it now, and I don't know if it's because people got into it years later. But I think when we did that tour with Marty Stewart and Roger McGuinn, we didn't change anything. We did the same songs off the album, but we played them better and we sang them better, I thought.
Yeah.
So, and Marty's band, I mean, my God, they're good. They are so good.
Aptly named, for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, and you've also said DRB was the most professional of all of the bands that you'd worked with after all of the shenanigans of your 60s and 70s bands.
Yeah, really, there was no baggage in Desert Rose Band. Obviously not literal, I mean figuratively, there was no baggage. Everybody was a pro, and from the vocals to the instrumentation. And we were always in that 90th percentile live. It was wonderful because it was always, everybody took their job seriously, but not to the point of sacrificing quality. It was like we were going, let's make it real slick, and we played from our heart. It was just a great band. And like I said, the one band, we parted company. It was really, I actually did say, Stephen, I said, I think it's time for us to take a break. We're not getting on the radio as quickly as we were, and it happens. I said, our shelf life is expiring. So, we worked together beyond that actual time when we retired. I mean, I still work with John Jorgensen and Herb Peterson, J.D. Manus. Steve lives across country, but we'd all work together when possible, not necessarily as the Desert Rose Band, but as musicians.
Now the phrase, I'm going to jump back a little bit. The phrase country rock. You mentioned in the book that you weren't really crazy with being, kind of referred to as the architect or one of the architects of country rock. But then later on, what do you say to people who say Graham Parsons invented country rock? I mean, how do you do?
I just sort of remind people that I came out of a real traditional place of bluegrass. And the other thing is that the Byrds were really doing, like I believe I discussed that with you. We cut Porter Wagner's Satisfied Mind, big hit for him in the late 50s. And we cut it on the second album in 1965. Turn, Turn, Turn was the title of the album. And we did Satisfied Mind because it was just a great song. And we'd always sort of dabble in it, in country stuff. I could safely get up on a pedestal and say, well, Time Between, the song I wrote on Younger Than Yesterday, is the first country rock song, but I don't dare do that. Graham really was a folk singer too. It's ironic. The thing with poor Graham, his folks bought him a club to work in when he was in high school. Did you know that? I'm sure you did. He had too much going against him to really become successful. And I'll just say this, and this is from my dear friend Dwight Yoakam said to me one day. He says, you can't be a country singer with a trust fund. And I said, wow, that's for sure. Well, that was holding him back, Stephen. Graham was pulling in $55,000 every January. That was in 1968, 69, a lot of money now.
Yeah.
But that part of his life where he didn't really struggle, everybody that gets into music or acting or writing or whatever, radio, you struggle. You struggle at the beginning. That's how you learn how to do your job. I think that really held Graham back. But hey, whoever wants to be king of country rock, fine. I tell Dwight I'm the king of country rock, but I'm glad to hand over the title. And I'm joking, of course. I want everybody to know that. But it became because first we do Bob Dylan's Mr. Tambourine Man, the Byrds, folk rock. Then we did something else, and it was jazz rock, 8 Miles High.
Right.
Raga Rock was an interesting, love that one. Raga Rock, I don't know where that was coming from, but it was just, I think it was lazy journalism. And so they sort of categorized. So what came along, of course, 30 years later was Americana. So we're all under that big umbrella, which basically implies roots-oriented music, and that's fine.
And that goes all the way back to Squirrel Barkers.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now, your post-DRB solo albums, the Rice, Hillman, and Peterson albums, the 3 albums that you did, they're not like really well known. A lot of people don't really know a lot about those. What was and then your 1980s acoustic quartet with Perkins and Bernie and Jerry Sheff. Some really
It's great stuff. I loved all that, and I got to tell you, you're right. The Rice, Hillman, Peterson. For lack of a better name, the albums were pretty good. I mean, they were pretty good albums. We didn't tour, but maybe 5 or 6 times. It was not really a band in that sense. And Tony and Larry, I mean, I knew them since when they lived in LA. I mean, I really, in the timeline of the Golden State Boys, I took Herb Rice's job. He was the mandolin player,
right?
And their dad, and then Vern Gosden actually went from mandolin. He took Herb's job, and then he went to guitar, and then they hired me. But I knew Tony when he was 12, and Larry was 14.
Wow. Tony
was already being tutored heavily by Clarence White, and you can tell. Tony was a fantastic guitarist. I mean, as we know. But yeah, I love those albums. I thought they were pretty good, really. The first one especially, but. And then 3 more with Herb, the Bakersfield Bound, Way Out West, and Edwards Barn.
What is it about you guys that's so simpatico? How is it that you blend so well musically and as people?
Well, we're both extremely sarcastic wise guys, California wise guys. He's a Northern Californian and I'm a Southern, but we always just hit it off, and he has a great sense of humor. He's a very funny man, and he's ever so talented. He plays the best rhythm guitar ever. So when we'd be out on a gig, the two of us, if I took a cab ride on a solo, he'd always be there on the downbeat. I'm going, uh-oh, and I hit some note, and he's right there for me. But the vocals, he just has that beautiful tenor. He's got the best sense of how to sing harmony with somebody. I think I mentioned that he always assumed the personality and everything about the person he was singing with. So that's why I say Emmylou Harris's first big breakout hit was "If I Could Only Win Your Love."
Right.
If you hear Herb and her singing that, my God, he's good on that. And I mean, he's so tight with her that it makes her sound a lot better. He makes us all sound good. But long relationship. We met each other when we were 18, and it's been a fun time. He's a good guy.
And then he engineered or made the connection with Tom Petty for "Biding My Time."
He was doing background vocals. Tom hired him to do background vocals, and they went on a tour with Mudcrutch, which was Tom's first band. And I think Tom had done a Mudcrutch album, so he hired her to do background vocals. But while they're out there on the road, they start bringing me up, and that's where Herb gets off the road and says, call Tom, blah. But yeah. And it turned out Herb really ran the musical part of the studio. So the guys, and organizing the guys, and but Tom was the producer. Tom was the idea man. And classic, of course, I write in the book where we're out, Herb and I are goofing around with the Everly Brothers song, which I can't remember right now because my brain isn't working, but we're out there singing this song.
Walk Right Back.
Thank you. God bless you. Walk Right Back. We're singing it out in the studio between takes and setting up, and Tom runs out. We got to cut that right now. I went, what? He said, you've got to do this right now. It's fresh in you. And that's where Tom was at as a producer. He was catching that emotion. He could see that. And we went out and we did it in about 30 minutes, meaning fully with solo. John Jorgensen played a fantastic solo on that song.
Yes, he did.
And I remember Tom sitting, telling John, he says, hey, go for the solo. John was so used to overdubbing. And Tom says, no, just play the solo. Just play it. Go. Come on, everybody play. It worked out great.
It sure did. That's
how good of a producer Tom Petty was. The best. He was one of the best I worked with.
Well, I know we got to wrap it up, but I wanted to cover the your exit from the Heathen Defense League, and how you finally exited that. What role faith and family played in that.
Oh gosh, J.D. Souther, also one of the funniest people on the planet. Very, very funny man. And while we're up at Jim Guercio's Caribou Ranch recording, and he had started the Heathen Defense League, because Al and Richie were over in the corner. I was not embracing Jesus Christ at the moment, but that was such a funny line. But yes, I a few years later did embrace Christ in my life, and never looked back. But I can still laugh at that. I think it's one of the best lines. Or what was the other line? He had sons of pagan, something like that. I don't know. And of course, he doesn't mean it. He was brought up some semblance of a church upbringing.
Right.
He is a very funny man. Very funny.
Well, the connection with Connie has been your stability. She's been your rock basically for the last 30-something years.
She really has been. I sometimes think she was divinely put in my life. I mean, we dated for a couple of years. I proposed and we were married, and it's just been it's going on 42 years. I got the most interesting phone call yesterday, and I'm driving with my wife and Winona Judd. And she said, I got to tell you, I sent them a book because I'm very close with her husband, Cactus. And she calls me up and out of the blue, and she says, "I got to tell you that this line, I'll love you till time passes me by," which I wrote to Connie in the beginning of the book. She says, "I can't." She almost started crying, and it was so sweet of her to do that. And I said, "Why? That's a song I wrote, and it's on one of the Desert Rose Band albums. I couldn't tell you which one it is right now, but it was just really sweet that she picked up on that." And yes, and I meant that, every word of it. I mean, Connie's been just terrific in my life, and the greatest manager, the best manager in the world, the best manager I've ever had.
She's a pretty good publicist too.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, she works quite well with Carrie Baker, I must say.
Right.
But she works well with everyone. She's just very, very efficient and put in a lot of time, over half her life working for Elton John, and learned a heck of a lot.
Yep.
Boy, did she learn a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely school. Well, I know we got to wrap it up. I talked to Ron and Howard a couple of days ago, and I said, "When are you guys going to write your book?" They said, "We're waiting for you." They want me to write their book. So
Well, do it.
Well, I'm gonna,
Good.
So hook me up with Scott at BMG when we're rolling on that.
When you get a manuscript, absolutely. But there's a great story there. Now, do you know that Howard was in Vietnam?
No. Oh yes,
Okay.
yes. He came back and then joined.
Howard was a medic
Right.
in combat, and I think he got some shrapnel in his leg. He doesn't limp or anything, but I was very impressed with that he had been over there in the midst of it all and came out quite well. He's very level-headed, and he says they're both just wonderful guys. Their dad was great too. Their dad retired in his early 30s. He was so successful. But both of those guys they're terrific producers. They're sweet guys. Yeah.
So what's next for you to wrap it up? What's next for you? What's on your agenda coming up?